All right. Welcome to the DaveCast, episode 4. Man, we are getting into this show now, and I'm having the time of my life making this show, and I hope that you're enjoying it. And I'm really excited about tonight. Tonight's a special episode. I'm going to be inviting you in on a little conversation that I had with Dr. Phillip Reynolds. Now, Phillip, if you don't know this, is one of my mom's brothers. Phillip is my uncle. And we had a great talk. We recently sat down in the living room at his home, and we talked about a lot of things. We talked about his earlier years. We talked about his family. We talked a little bit about sports, a little bit of Wilson Hall, Thomas Sumter rivalry, if you know what that is. But then the big things that we got into were this. We talked about ministry, what it means to minister, and how he was called into ministry. And then the big part is actually closer to the end when we began to talk about something very important. We talk about grief. And you know, man, grief is something that we all deal with, whether it's losing a loved one or going through divorce or another major event in life where there's a sense of loss. Grief is something that affects every one of us. Phillip has been through some loss in his life. And I hope you're really listening close to what he says about grief, because I think what he says can be a good help to you and me. And I'm not going to steal his thunder or spoil it for you, but really pay attention to what he says about grief. I think it's going to be a help to some of you. Actually, it'll be a help to all of you because I know it helped me. So again, I'm David. Thanks for tuning into my show, the DaveCast, episode 4, and have a great time. And after Phillip and I talk, we'll be right back here to wrap things up. Stay awesome. I'm good if you're good, man.
I'm good. Roll tape.
Roll it, baby. Hey, it's good to see you.
That's because you snapped your fingers.
Do what now?
You
You're
snapped
more than
your
welcome
fingers.
to be here. So you, can you tell us a little bit about your early years? Right, you're from Pinewood originally. Was that your
Greater Pinewood?
Yeah,
Not from Pinewood proper, from out in the country. Our mailing address was Pinewood,
yeah,
but we're literally from out in the middle of nowhere. We grew up out on the Reynolds farm area. Although my father didn't farm, he quit farming by the time we came along.
yeah.
He farmed up, I think, 54 or something. Is when he quit, and then he got a good job working as a factory rep for Carolina Furniture. He traveled the state of South Carolina, but we grew up out there in the farm area, in the woods. You've been there.
Yeah.
I mean, you grew up out there too, practically.
Yeah.
But it was kind of paradise out there. We loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You, for those who don't know, brothers and sisters, of course, for those who don't know, my mama's Phillip's sister. But there's also some good brothers in there.
Well, there were some brothers in there.
Some brothers.
Anyway, and your sister was the oldest,
Yeah.
and she was apologies, Diane, but a good little bit older.
Yeah.
So it's like there was her, and then there was 3 of us who were really close in age, and then a little brother that came along 6 years later.
Yeah.
But the thing I liked the most was growing up with those brothers, because we played, and mostly when we played, it was mostly sports.
Yeah.
And you knew that from hanging around out there, because we were, as you knew, we were sports crazy.
Yeah.
Y'all were more normal.
Yeah. I wished I was more like you guys, honestly.
Yeah.
I wanted to be more like y'all with that.
But growing up with the brothers made me better in every way, because
Really?
we were constantly competing and and fun, but we were constantly competing and button heads and always playing baseball and basketball and football, constantly. And I wouldn't have been half the athlete I was in high school without them.
Yeah.
Because you had to develop these skills. Because I was younger, and being younger, I just had to play harder and smarter in order to even keep up.
Yeah.
Never beat them in anything, but
Couldn't beat them. Huh?
No, but keep up with them.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun, and it also made you tough because it's like, shut up, baby, quit crying.
So they were hard on you.
Oh God, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my word, yeah. But
now Steve was the oldest. Was that right?
Steve was the oldest.
Steve, Tommy.
Tommy and I are really close in age. Tommy is 51 weeks older than me. So for a week every year we're the same age.
Yeah.
So we're real close. And but Steve was 2.5 years, 3 years older than me, something like that.
Yeah.
So we were all close enough to be competing. And the fact that I was the younger of those three, Robert came along 6 years later, so he was not quite old enough to really mix it up with us. But being the youngest of those three competitors, I had to be, they just made me better. Just no way to say it. I wouldn't have been what I was without them.
Yeah.
So it was great.
It was a sports life for y'all, wasn't it?
Yeah, Daddy was coach of our baseball team, and he was a good athlete and a really good coach. Not all good athletes are good coaches, but he was a really good coach.
Yeah.
And his way is, I've gotten older and reflected on how he did it. He did it through repetition. He didn't coach us a lot. He would hit us ground balls for hours.
Yeah.
He would pitch batting practice for hours and never say much.
Really?
But just let us figure it out.
Yeah.
Because, your body and your intellect will say to you, you did that wrong, don't do that again. Or you did that right, that worked, repeat that. And, when you take 100 ground balls 4 days a week,
you're going to get good.
You're going to learn something.
Yeah.
And so it was time spent and repetition without riding us, without over coaching us, letting us have fun and letting us learn on our own.
Yeah.
And that was really, it was kind of magical. The yard, we had a huge yard.
Yeah.
I mean, the front yard was over an acre.
Oh, it's massive.
Yeah. And so you could have full speed ball games out there.
Yeah.
Football, baseball, just go, and just all the time. And then we had a basketball court. I don't know if you remember, was over on the side.
I remember that.
Yeah.
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 And we were at that age where we wanted to play with y'all, but we were younger, a little bit slower, not as tough as you guys were. So it was like this weird, and you would include us. I will say that y'all always let us
we were
play.
horrible to you.
But but I wasn't.
Yeah. We were. You were. Don't lie to the camera.
I wanted to keep. I couldn't keep up with you. But
y'all were so much younger because you're what, 12 years younger than me?
Yeah, I was like 12 years younger.
And you were the oldest. So then the other two little squirts. But
it's all right. That's normal. The older and younger guys.
Yeah. So from firsthand experience how you get toughened up out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah. If you had thin skin and weak bones, you weren't going to make it.
No. And that was a good thing. It did.
Yeah.
Probably toughen us all up.
Yeah. Go home crying. They're being to me. Well, of course.
Toughen up.
That's what they do.
That's right. It's a hard world. You got to get used to it.
It's a hard world.
Yeah. So the rivalry between you were a Wilson Hall guy, I was a Thomas Humphrey guy. That was a heated rivalry back in summer.
Yeah, because both schools were doing really well at that time.
Yeah.
And we're about the same size and same strength. And Thomas Humphrey had good athletes. Some years they beat us. Some years we beat them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Excuse me. They were really good in baseball and football.
Yeah.
I don't remember them being that good in basketball, but they were really good in baseball and football.
Yeah. And
so we had some really, really good games. I played varsity football and baseball at Wilson Hall for 5 years, started in 8th grade. And I think, we beat them 3 times. They beat us twice. So, it was pretty doggone even.
Pretty close.
Yeah, It was good. Yeah. And one of the games that we beat them, actually was tied at the end of regulation, and they had some sort of little weird overtime rule.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to explain it. It had to do with who gained the most yards in overtime. It was
Really?
weird, and so I think we outgained them by 4 or 5 yards. I mean, it was whatever it was. I'm sure some of the guys will remember because they didn't like losing on that crazy rule.
Sure.
I don't know why we had that crazy rule, but they, that game could have gone either way. But Tommy, my middle brother, broke off a long touchdown run in that game to save it for us.
Really?
And if he hadn't done that, we'd have lost.
Yeah.
But that's how close that rivalry. It was a great rivalry.
Yeah.
I mean, the stands were packed for those games. It was fun.
Well, that's what I remember, Phil, when I was a kid, before I got old enough to play. Going to those high school games, Thomas Hunter Wilson Hall and others, that was like going to a small college game.
It was.
And maybe because there was less competition, there wasn't as much to do.
Yeah,
but everybody'd go to the games.
Yeah.
And it was a huge thing. I remember, emotionally, it had everybody up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
intense. And on the field, it was intense.
War, I bet.
Yeah. Yeah, we weren't terribly nice to one another. But, I mean, guys like Bubba Ward playing for Thomas Sumter is a great athlete, fantastic athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was button heads.
Both schools had some great athletes. So you three guys were all very athletic. Then you married a very athletic young lady, Aunt Betsy.
Yeah.
And so it's no wonder that Jason, James, and John are all good athletic guys.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
That's just part of the Reynolds family.
I don't remember giving them a choice.
You're doing this.
No, I mean, they loved it. They took to it naturally. They loved it. And it was kind of odd the way they fell out. Jason was, and that, like us, they played everything coming up because you could do that.
Yeah.
But James really excelled in football.
Yep.
Although he played everything else.
Yeah.
Was good too. Jason really excelled in baseball, although he played everything else and was good too.
Right.
And then John ended up really excelling in basketball.
Right.
So that it was kind of funny how they went in different directions with the major sports, but it was just according to their talent.
Yeah.
And all. Jason was a really good hitter in baseball. James just loved playing football. He just loved it. So still does because it's a high school coach now.
Right.
And John eventually, just because he loved basketball so much, as he progressed through high school, he gave up everything else and just played basketball.
Right.
Because he was just a gym rat. You couldn't get him out of the gym. So anyway, it's kind of funny. But Betsy may be the best athlete out of the crew. And I'm not, she played college basketball. She played at Carolina.
Yeah.
And your viewers will find this interesting.
Yeah.
She was on the team that changed the name to the Lady Gamecocks. And now they're just Gamecocks, but for years they were the Lady Gamecocks.
Wow.
But it was her team that changed the name from what they were. Do you know what they were before?
What were they before?
It's a little politically incorrect these days. They were the Chicks.
No.
And it was her team that said,
really?
It was her team that said, we're not wearing that uniform.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
I don't blame them for changing.
And so they had choices. She says she can't remember what the choices were, but she can't remember. But she said there were several choices, and they voted. Yeah. And it was their Lady Gamecocks was a clear winner because it's a natural thing,
So they used to call women's basketball Carolina. They were the Carolina Chicks.
They were the Chicks.
I did not know that.
And when they went to hand out the uniforms for Betsy's team, she made it her freshman year. We ain't doing that.
You've educated. I had no clue. And I've been a Carolina fan all my life.
You got to be old to know that story. But you ought to be interviewing her. That would be a lot more interesting to interview.
We'll have to have her sometime.
Yeah. But, because she played it would.
Yeah.
That was the very, very beginning of what's become a national power. But that's where it all started. But back then, they used to play.
I missed somebody very important. I mentioned Jason, James, John. You've got Mary Beth.
Oh, yeah.
Mary Beth, sweet as pie. What has she meant to you, man? How's she doing these days?
We're, we're so proud of her because she's she's worked for Chick-fil-A, and that's
Yeah.
great. She lives in an apartment. She's got her own apartment, got it fixed up real nice.
Good.
She decided she was going to buy herself a car.
Oh.
And
okay.
we found just what she wanted. Greenwood or somewhere. We had,
Okay.
You don't buy cars the way you used to. You search on the internet, you find what you want, and you go get it, or they ship it to you. Well, we found just what she wanted, price she wanted, and she makes her car payments every month. She marches into that bank, and she's so proud to lay that stuff down. Yeah, man. So
she is a sweet lady. Think the world over.
I tell my boys, they ever say anything ugly, I say, well, I got one child that works up to her potential.
Way to go, Mary Beth. Yeah. That's right.
They don't say anything after that.
Yeah. Well, man, God has blessed you with 4 great kids.
Yeah.
And, of course, a bunch of grandkids now, too. So
9
grandkids.
Yeah. The boys, those are grand boys back there.
Yeah. That's awesome.
3 grand boys, 6 grand girls.
Yeah. So what led to Phillip Reynolds becoming a pastor? You've been a pastor for how many years?
40.
40 years as a pastor.
Yeah.
You're about to retire.
Yep.
What led you into being a pastor?
Whew.
I mean, I know ultimately was the Lord, but how did you see that's where he was leading you?
Well, a long story, and of course very personal, but when I was a senior in high school, I've never been depressed in my life because you know me, I'm a real
you're upbeat.
I'm a real happy, have a good time. Let's go, come on, But when I was a senior in high school, I was just looking at what's next because that's what seniors in high school. You've been there, You go, well, what am I going to do after this?
Yeah,
and it was just the most unappealing. What do you do? Well, go to college, I guess, get some kind of degree in something half interesting, I guess, work for, 40 years and you're going to go watch and retire and die.
Right. Yeah. There's got to be more than this.
Yeah. And so now you'll find this interesting because this was a connection for you. Ron Richardson was always asking me to come to church with him because Ron and I used to do Bible study. Ron led it, of course, but started a Bible study there in their, their house with the ping pong table in the room and all that.
Yeah.
We used to have Bible study. Ron started a Bible study there on Thursday night. He started it. The first time he did it, there were like 3 of us there. And then it grew, by the time I was a senior in high school and Ron, it was like you couldn't get in that room. There would be like 40, 50 kids over there.
So it mushroomed.
Oh, great. But, Ron was but anyway, Ron and I, we were close and I really looked up to him. Ron's a year older than I am. And he was always asking me to come visit church with him, come to church with me. I don't drive. I drive something every day. I don't want to. So finally I said, all right, I'll do it. And so one Sunday I showed up and he had a place saved for me, right there on the front row. And Bob Norris, you remember Bob Norris?
I remember Bob Norris.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
He preached, and you've preached a lot, and try to find somebody that remembers one of your sermons.
Right.
That ain't easy.
Right.
Bob Norris preached that day on Jeremiah 33:3.
And he could shuck the corn.
Yeah, he was good. And
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, well, you're right. But anyway, call to me and I'll answer you and show you great and mighty things you don't know. And so Bob said, if you call, he will answer.
Yeah.
And then he'll show you something that's pretty great that you don't know.
Right.
So, and I thought, well, I got something to ask him. Yeah. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
What do you want? What am I supposed to do? And I guess that's every young guy's question. What am I here for?
Right.
And I couldn't imagine anything that I was interested in.
Yeah.
And so I did. I thought about that and prayed about that for months. And I mean, it wasn't like pray and get an answer. It was think about, pray about for months. And then, one night I was lying in bed. I was reading. I don't know what I was reading. I don't know if I was reading the Bible. I don't know what I was reading. But I was thinking about that. I guess you could say I was praying about it. And I don't hear audible voices.
Sure.
But it was like, what are you good at?
Mm.
Then the answer is nothing. No, really, what are you good at?
I got you.
And what I was evidently pretty good at was public speaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I ran for 3 student body positions in high school where you had to make a speech in front of the entire student body and get voted on.
Mm.
And so when I was in 8th grade, I made a speech in front of the entire student body and got elected student body treasurer for the student council.
In 8th grade?
Well, I was a rising 9th grader.
Oh, yeah.
But I did it at the end of the 8th grade year. So
shoot, that's impressive.
I'm 14 years old, speaking to the entire student body, and won the thing.
Yeah.
Gene Nally, the principal, asked me to be class president of the sophomore class. He had a reason, I can't remember. But so I did that. But the next year, I ran for student body vice president, made a speech in front of the whole school, and got elected. The next year, ran for president, student body, made a speech in front of the whole student body, and got. And I think what God was saying is, you might not be very good at this, but you do this better than anything else you do.
Mm.
You understand?
Yeah, I get it. He wired you for this.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're great at this, but you do it better than you do anything else.
Right. That was your natural inclination.
Yeah. You can make a living with this.
Yeah.
You can serve me. You can make a living.
Yeah.
Do not be a golf pro. You will starve to death.
Yeah.
Don't be a salesman.
Right.
I tried sales for a while because I'm like, you don't want to buy a vacuum cleaner, do you? It's.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that approach.
Like, you will starve as a salesman.
Yeah. You can't be a nice guy. Yeah. Be in sales, I guess.
If you're a doctor, you'll be sued for malpractice. You don't do those things well.
Right.
I want to be a shortstop for the St. Louis Cardinals. No.
Right. Yeah.
As an athlete, you're small, but you're slow.
I can relate to the slow part. Yeah.
You don't want to do it. You don't want to give yourself to that. The way I made you, you do this better than you do anything else that you do.
He wired you for it.
So go do this.
Yeah.
And initially I got all excited, and then I spent the next 7 years running from it.
Mm.
So went on to college. But I did talk to him. Well, I was going to church with Betsy at that time. First Baptist. Something.
Kirk Smith was your pastor, right?
And Harold Kirkland was there at that time. And then Kirk came, and Kirk and I just hit it off.
Yeah, y'all remember y'all had a good friendship.
Very, very close.
Yeah.
I did his funeral.
Yeah.
That's how close we were. But anyway, Kirk said, go major in English.
Yeah.
A pastor cannot be too well read.
Yeah.
It's impossible for a preacher to be too well read. Go major in English. I said, what about Bible? He said, you get that in seminary.
Right.
Go major in English. So I did. Unless you're going to teach, the only other thing you could do with an English major is preach or play Jeopardy. That's about it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So anyway, Betsy and I got married in college. Children started coming along pretty soon after that. And I just thought that was a pipe dream. That's when I tried sales. I was terrible at it.
Yeah.
But no, it was David, when God speaks, he means what he says.
Yeah.
So he said, go preach, let me go preach.
Right.
And so I wasted 7 years telling him no.
Right. Kind of ran from it.
Yeah, but then, like the hound of heaven, Francis Bacon poem, he pursued me down the labyrinth of years, and it's like, you could do it or not.
I love that. Yeah. I love the hound of heaven. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid.
An English major could do obscure 19th century poems.
Wow.
You can quote obscure 19th century poems. If you major
That's right.
Yeah, you can.
It pays off, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when you preached one of your first sermons, it might not have been the first, one of the first. I was there at First Baptist Sumter when you preached, and they had that huge pulpit.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember you were there, and I was like, "Where you go, man? Check out Phillip."
Yeah, I wasn't quite ready for that. But
That's all right.
Kurt got me to do it. That was pretty intimidating.
We handle it well.
Yeah. Well, on the outside.
I remember what you said. Funny.
You're kidding.
I remember you stood up there and you said, because I think you were filling in for, what would have been Kirk, I guess.
Yeah.
And you said, I realize y'all coming here and seeing me preach is like when you try to watch Johnny Carson and Jay Leno's on there. I remember you said that. For some reason, that line stood out.
Yeah.
You know,
you came to see Johnny, but it's
Jay Leno.
Guest host tonight, and they'll go, "Oh man,
but I remember
I'm going to bed."
Yeah, and that was one of the first things.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, and I remember that was one of the first times I sat there and thought, it's fun to work with words. Like you got me thinking when you did that. But yeah, I remember you preaching, and man, you've had just a blessed ministry, hadn't you?
Yeah, really have.
Some great experiences.
Great experience, some hard experiences. But they all make you better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been something. And now I'm twilight. People say you're practicing medicine or you're practicing law. You're practicing ministry. I mean, you're always working at it and getting better. I tell people, you think I'm bad now? You should have heard me 30 years ago.
You ain't seen nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this, man. I mean, and obviously I've heard you preach, and I always got a lot out of your sermons. But I've also noticed, like, man, pastoral care is your thing. You know, when I was
it's your thing.
Well, yeah, I love it too.
Yeah.
But I mean, like when I was in hospice, I would visit people, and they would say, "Man, your uncle came to see me. Your uncle prayed."
And then when I would go, they'd say, "Man, your nephew came to see me." I mean, I heard that all the time.
Yeah, we would both kind of have that happen. And I remember one thing you told me years ago when I was serving. I don't know why, I just remember things. But you said when you go to visit somebody in the nursing home or hospital, don't be one of these guys that's just very quickly throws down the business card to get out as fast as he can. Your thing was, if you can, stick around and talk with these people and give them time. And that made an impression on me. You were like, do more than just throw down a card. Anybody can throw down a card.
Yeah.
But minister to these people.
Yeah. Now, again, I don't remember saying that to you, but people have asked me, you go see people in the hospital, if they're asleep, do you wake them up or not? And wake them up.
Yeah, that's what you said.
They need to know that they've been prayed for.
Right.
And you don't stay too long. I'll tell you what, now, when I got so sick a few years ago, and I spent a lot of time in the hospital, that taught me a lot too.
Right.
When you're on the other side of that bed,
brother, that'll do it.
The main thing I learned from that is don't stay too long, because I had some people come see me in the hospital, and I thought, I'm in here because I'm sick.
Let's don't drag this out too long.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I bet my hospital visit time has been cut in half since then, because they need to know you've been there. They need to know you care. They do need to be prayed for. There's nothing like being prayed for.
Right.
I mean, there's just, that.
Yeah.
It's just, there's power, there's holiness, there's love, there's all that stuff in there. And you get it when you pray. That needs to happen. Then you need to get out.
Right.
Yeah, because
don't wear out your welcome.
He or she is in there because they're really, really sick.
Yeah. And you don't want them to feel like they have to entertain you.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. I remember laying in that hospital bed in Toomey when I had that gallbladder thing. That's sickest I've ever been in my life. I was more sick with that than I was with heart surgery.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you just leave. I appreciate this.
I've been around people like that. It's like, I know you mean well, but daggone, this is going too long.
Yeah.
We've got to wrap this thing.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, Phillip, man, if I can shift gears with you, and I think you can be a good help to people with this. One of the topics that I wanted to bring up to you and kind of get your thoughts on is grief. I know you've been through some things. For those who haven't had the privilege of meeting you yet, I know you lost your dad, my granddaddy, 71.
Right after you were born.
Right after I was born.
You were a baby.
Yeah, I was still
but he did get to see you.
That's right. There's a picture somewhere of him holding me. I think Mom has one picture. Yeah. So you lost your dad, and then grandmama, your mama, she passed away. This is during COVID, right?
Because you called me.
I did.
You were the one that called me and told me, because you were the chaplain.
I remember that.
Yeah. Thank
I
you.
hated calling telling you that.
I know I've had to make those calls too. You hate it, but
Yeah.
you got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you, last year, of course, Uncle Steve, your brother, the Lord took him home, and so you, and man, I still admire you got up there and preached your brother's funeral, and I
That
stood there
was
with my
hard.
brothers and watched that, and I was like, daggone, that was perfect, just
Yeah.
what needed to be said.
Yeah.
You know?
You were very attentive. Condi was very attentive. Wyman said, "Oh, I got a good sermon idea out of that."
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
got a
Wyman.
story.
I
Yeah.
did it for you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask you was, you've dealt with grief. You dealt with it as a kid with your dad, and then as a man with others. How have you coped with grief over the years? What's your experience been like? And are there some things that God has taught you in dealing with your grief that make it help some people out there dealing with their grief? What are some things that you've kind of picked up? And I know we're still learning these things, but is
Yeah.
there some advice you can give to people who are coping with grief like you have?
The advice I would give to people is talk.
Talk. Yeah.
Just talk through it. When you say I dealt with grief at a young age, I really didn't.
Okay.
And which is, I think, a common mistake a lot
Right.
of people make.
Just didn't want to talk about it.
You just swallow it. You just choke it down, and I did that for years and years with it. So,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be aware of that, but you know, you either deal with it or you don't. And I didn't. And
Okay.
like
Did you kind of
Rob,
just bury it?
yeah, you just choke it down. And
Yeah.
Robert Bly says in his book Iron John, men don't know anything about grief. Men don't know how to handle grief, and I think that's so true.
Right.
Yeah. So it was later, in my early 20s. I remember I was in Kurt Smith's office talking to him. Again, don't know, pastor at First Baptist Church. Mine and Betsy's pastor who married us. But Kurt looked at me, and you've probably had this experience every now and then. Somebody will look right through you.
Yeah.
And Kurt said, "You got some unfinished business with God."
Wow.
Yeah. And, he was exactly right.
Yeah.
So in the work of later, even more years later, being a pastor and going through grief with people,
Mm-hmm.
because as a pastor, you're called to walk with people through their grief and through their dying and all that kind of stuff. It's like I was forced to confront it.
Mm.
And so for a period of years there, I tried to work on it. But then when I did my doctorate at DMin, I think you did a DMin.
Yeah.
You usually, I don't know how yours was structured. I think most of them are structured like the one I did, where you pick an area, you work, you
Yeah.
go concentrate. That's what you go write your dissertation on and all that kind of stuff. And at that time, I had 6 people in the church I was pastoring. Wasn't a large church,
Yeah.
but I had 6 people that were terminal.
Wow.
And I knew that I wasn't doing a good job with them.
Mm.
Like make up excuses not to go see them. Well,
Yeah.
I can't go see them, because I'm busy. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just didn't want to deal with the whole death thing.
And the thing about you gotta work with this, man.
Yeah.
You're not doing your job. You're not helping them, and all that kind of stuff. So then my dissertation was in the dying process.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And what we can learn from Jesus, who happened to be terminal.
Mm-hmm.
He knew he was dying.
Right.
He knew he was going to die. He's like, he got diagnosis, like not you're going to die, but they are going to kill you. And he knew it. And he tried to tell everybody that.
Yeah.
And so I developed this course. I wrote a study course called Living Our Dying, Living Our Dying, and tracking Jesus through the gospel according to Luke, and how he really did go through the stages.
Yeah.
And it's very evident. And then what we can learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a very self-serving doctoral project.
It helped you.
Because the stages of death and the stages of grief are almost identical.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was really dealing with both. I was dealing with those people who were dying, but also dealing with grieving families and my own grief.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that was, I'd like to give you a nice, neat little answer like I did this and I did that. And
It's okay.
I was so smart to do all this kind of stuff, but I wasn't. You're talking about from the time your grandfather, my father died,
Yeah.
I was 12 till I completed that doctoral project at 40.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, nice, neat little 28 years. And as you said, you're always working on it.
Yeah.
You're always working on it.
Yeah.
So grief has to be dealt with, or you wind up bitter and resentful.
Mm.
And so it's enormously important
Yeah.
that you deal with it. But it's not that hard. Just talk.
Yeah.
just
Get it out.
talk.
Yeah.
Tell the story of how you lost that loved one. Tell the story of what that left you with. Tell how it made you feel. Tell the practical changes you had to make in order to survive and rearrange life and all this stuff. Tell parts about how you learned to laugh again and
Yeah.
when that happened. When was the first time you caught yourself with a real joyous laugh?
Right.
After that, it's usually like 18 months.
Right.
But it's a long, all this because
Yeah.
you did hospice chaplaincy. But anyway, yeah. But my thing is just talk. Just talk.
Can't clam up, can we?
I can promise you that doesn't work because I tried it.
Right.
For
Right.
years.
Yeah.
Years. And it messes you up, messes up people around you.
Yeah.
So I'm not a real good role model in that.
That's okay.
It's really had to struggle with that.
We're learning as we're going.
Or not learning.
Well, that's true. Yeah. I understand that too.
Yeah.
So,
but that's what I tell people. Just talk.
Yeah.
Don't quit talking.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you sharing that, and I guess maybe that's what people just need to hear is find someone to talk with.
Yeah.
Open up, share what's on your heart and your mind, and
well, what did you do as a chaplain? You walked in and people talked to you.
Yeah, they would. And I noticed, man, people when I was in hospice chaplaincy, people were grieving even before the death.
Oh, yeah.
Like kind of like what you were saying there. And then when I was with McLeod, I was grief counseling. Mm-hmm. So I would do the grief support groups. And, man, I remember being nervous at first, like, all right, I got to go in there. I got to have all this stuff to say. And what I realized was, no, I don't. They're the ones that got to say
facilitate them. Yeah.
That's it. I learned you got to facilitate, man. Let these people get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. Some people, when they would talk, they'd cry. Some would laugh. Some were angry. And what I learned from that was there's no textbook way to grieve. Man, we all grieve so differently.
Mm-mm. Any decent book or pamphlet or whatever on grief will tell you that.
Right.
These are the stages you go through, but you might not go through them in this order.
Yeah.
You might not ever go through number 4.
Right.
You might skip that and go to number 7. Any good day with it is, generally speaking, you're going to go through, shock and denial and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is highly individual. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And I think what you mentioned is really important too, is that a lot of people do their grieving in advance.
Yeah.
And then when the death occurs, it's like, well, what's wrong with her? She's not grieving over her husband.
Yeah.
She's been grieving over her husband for 8 years, watching him die.
Right.
And now she's quite rightly relieved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing I noticed. Like some of these people who had Alzheimer's 8-10 years, their family had kind of come to terms with this way before you call the funeral home and pick them up.
Oh, yeah.
Not that they don't feel it, but they've been able to process it and work through it.
Yeah, they've been processing it for years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then some haven't. It's weird. And it always surprises you.
Yeah.
I remember, you're the one that called me when Mama died, and I got up there right away, and I think you were still there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but and it hit me a lot harder than I thought.
Really?
Yeah, because we all knew she was dying. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
She'd been going down.
yeah, but when you love somebody, it hits you hard. I'm preaching this week from John chapter 11 when Lazarus died. What did Jesus do?
He wept with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He
I wonder if he
with
was
them.
going, "What's wrong with me?"
Yeah. What is a salty discharge?
Yeah, 15 minutes, I'm gonna get the guy up. Why am I?
Another thing I've heard people say, they're like, well, Jesus was crying because he knew their soul was in heaven and they had it so good. He was crying because he felt bad. He's having to take him out of heaven and pull him back down here. And while I kind of get that, I don't think that's what it is. I think he's just grieving over the fact that death is in the world, like you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I get what they're saying, but I just think you're right. Like, this is tragic. This is not natural. This is not what should be going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did the onlookers say? They see how he loved him.
Yeah.
When you lose somebody you love, it's gonna bring tears.
Right.
You can know as sure as you are about anything that person is now in heaven,
Right.
but you've lost them.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
Yeah.
And so, in the little, well, you're going to see him again. Well, Jesus was going to see Lazarus again in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But still, he was lost, and loss hurts. You know that from your hospital chaplaincy work. Yeah. Loss hurts, and you cry. When we get hurt, we cry. It hurts. Yeah.
I'll tell you something. Your mama, my grandmama, was talking to me one time about when your dad died, and she said she was at the funeral home, and she said, David, I know everybody meant well, and their heart was in the right place, but she said, I got so tired of everybody coming to me saying he's in a better place.
Yeah.
And she said, I knew he was in a better place. I knew he was with the Lord. She said, but I felt like that was almost a way of saying, we don't want to see you grieving over here. Her thing was, I knew he was in a better place, but I missed him and wanted him with me. That's what Grandmama said.
Well,
and I quit saying that when she told me that years ago. I was like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Yeah, that comment probably made you a much better hospice chaplain.
It helped a little bit.
Yeah, probably
it's like,
did.
Don't say that.
Yeah, don't. We got all these little cliches. Well, what people do mean well, and they get nervous, and they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And they'll blurt something out like that, which is like,
yeah. My big things are, let's drop they're in a better place, and let's stop with the I'm so sorry. What are you apologizing for? And then when you say I'm sorry, then the other person's supposed to make you feel better. Oh, it's okay. It's not your fault. It's like, I don't like why don't you just say, I know you're grieving. I want to let you know I love you. I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'll be praying.
Job's friends came to see him, and they didn't say anything for 7 days.
Yeah.
And as soon as they opened his mouth, the next 30 chapters are downhill. They were doing fine.
Yeah.
And that's what, as you know, because you studied this stuff, that's what we call the ministry of presence.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yes, I know you know that phrase, the ministry of presence, and
just being there.
Well, it's Jesus' name.
Yeah,
God with us, and as a chaplain or a pastor, you represent the presence of God, and when you walk in that room, that's what you have already brought in there, and you don't need to say anything,
right?
Because you're there.
Just being there.
Just being there.
I used to hear about churches. They had this thing, the mourner's bench.
Oh yeah.
You'd go and sit. Like if I was sitting there grieving, you'd come. You'd just sit beside me.
Yeah.
You didn't have to say anything. Just being there in my mourning was enough.
Yeah.
Well, Phillip, man, I want you to know I appreciate you. The first Bible dictionary I was ever given was from you.
Really?
Yeah, you gave that to me. One of the first, I think it was either the first or second time I ever preached, was an invitation given to me from you.
Yeah.
When I was ordained, you were there and you gave me some good advice. I remember your advice was, David, just be real. Just be real. And you gave me that advice.
Yeah.
You've done a lot to help me over the years. I just want to say I appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for all that you've done.
I appreciate you too. Everybody wants somebody to coach. So like it or not, I've coached you up for the last gazillion years.
Well, I like it, and I hope you'll keep coaching me. I'm still a work in progress. I welcome your guidance.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Well, hey, I thank you for taking time with me today.
It's been
This has been
fun,
good.
David.
I feel like
Been
I've gotten to
fun.
know you even better, man. Man, I really appreciate Phillip. That was just a great talk. That's one of the best talks he and I have ever had. And I hope you got a little something out of that listening. And I just want to add one little comment here. If any of you watching this are dealing with some grief right now, if you're dealing with some really painful feelings after the death of someone that you love, or maybe you're dealing with some painful feelings that come after a divorce, or any number of things that have caused a sense of loss and grief within you, I challenge you to take to heart what Phillip has learned over the years. Talk about it. Find somebody that you can trust and sit down with that person, him or her, and share with them what's going on. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? Talk it out. Get it out. Let it out. And that'll be a big step in your healing journey as you work through your grief. And know this, that no matter how bad it may feel right now, God is there and He does care. And brothers and sisters, He will see you through this. Remember that verse in the Old Testament. It says this: weeping endures for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So hang in there. Keep talking it out. Keep looking up to the Lord. And know this, that better days are coming. Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in to the DaveCast. Thank you for watching episode 4. Hope you had a good experience with this. And I hope you'll tell your family and your friends and your coworkers and your neighbors. Tell them about the show and get the word out there. You can share the link on Facebook or any number of ways. Help me get the word out there, because I want to keep connecting with people, and hopefully through every episode offer them a little something that'll brighten their day and help them push forward. Thanks again. God bless you. Keep looking up and keep on keeping on.